Cyrus the Great, also known as CYRUS the Great, is a figure whose influence extends far beyond his lifetime, shaping the course of history for centuries. Born around 600 BCE, in a region that was to become the heart of one of the most powerful empires in antiquity, Cyrus' early life is shrouded in mystery, yet his rise to prominence is a testament to his vision, ambition, and leadership. His story is not only one of military conquest, but also of a leader who sought to create a more just and unified world, transcending the norms of the time. Understanding his origins is crucial to grasping the full scope of his achievements and the lasting legacy he left behind. Cyrus was born into the royal family of the Achaemenid dynasty in the ancient Persian kingdom of Anshan, a small but strategically important city in what is now southwestern Iran. His father, Cambyses I, was the ruler of Anshan, and his mother, Mandane, was the daughter of Astyages, the king of the Medes. The political context in which Cyrus was born was one of relative instability. The Medes, once dominant in the region, had seen their power waning in favor of the rising Persian kingdom. This familial connection to both the Persians and Medes would play a pivotal role in shaping his future and provide the basis for his eventual unification of these two powerful tribes. At the time of Cyrus' birth, the Persian and Median kingdoms were two separate entities, each ruled by its respective monarchs. The Medes, under Astyages, had enjoyed considerable influence in the region, but their hold on power was increasingly threatened by internal strife and external pressures. Astyages' rule, while relatively secure, was also marked by a growing sense of dissatisfaction among his subjects, including the Persians, who had long been under the control of the Median monarchy. Cyrus' early life thus unfolded against a backdrop of political tension, which would eventually set the stage for his rise to power. According to some historical sources, including the works of Herodotus, the renowned Greek historian, Cyrus' early years were marked by an unusual prophecy. Astyages, his maternal grandfather, allegedly had a dream that his grandson would grow up to overthrow him. In an attempt to prevent this, he ordered the infant Cyrus to be killed. However, the execution did not take place as planned, and the child was spared. A shepherd, who was tasked with carrying out the order, defied the king's command and saved Cyrus, raising him as his own. This tale, whether true or embellished, symbolizes the early signs of fate and destiny that would come to define Cyrus' life. The story of Cyrus' survival in the face of adversity is a recurring theme throughout his life. As he grew older, it became clear that he was no ordinary child. Even as a young man, he demonstrated a natural aptitude for leadership and a keen sense of strategy. He quickly gained the trust of his peers and began to show his potential as a warrior and ruler. While the historical accounts of his youth are often fragmented and contradictory, what is clear is that Cyrus was profoundly shaped by the geopolitical tensions of his time and the challenges posed by his lineage. Cyrus' early exposure to the political dynamics of both the Persian and Median courts provided him with invaluable insights into the workings of power. His father, Cambyses I, was a relatively mild ruler, which allowed young Cyrus to become more involved in the affairs of the kingdom. The Persian court was a place where alliances were forged and broken, and it was here that Cyrus began to develop his skills as a diplomat and leader. He learned the art of negotiation and persuasion, crucial tools that would later help him in uniting disparate peoples under his rule. However, it was his relationship with his maternal grandfather, Astyages, that would prove to be the most pivotal in shaping his destiny. As a young man, Cyrus' growing power and influence became a direct threat to Astyages, who, fearing the fulfillment of the prophecy, sought to suppress his grandson. The tensions between the two factions came to a head when Cyrus, at the age of 20, gathered an army and led a revolt against his grandfather's rule. This revolt would not only mark the beginning of Cyrus' military career, but also signify the dawn of the Persian Empire. The subsequent defeat of Astyages and the unification of the Medes and Persians under Cyrus' rule is one of the defining moments of ancient history. Through his strategic brilliance, diplomatic acumen, and military prowess, Cyrus was able to overthrow the Median monarchy without unnecessary bloodshed. Rather than annihilating his enemies, he sought to integrate them into his growing empire, ensuring loyalty through respect rather than fear. This approach was revolutionary at the time and would become a hallmark of his reign. Cyrus' victory over Astyages is often regarded as the moment when the Persian Empire was truly born. However, the unification of the Medes and Persians was just the beginning. Cyrus would go on to conquer vast swathes of territory, extending his empire from the Indian subcontinent in the east to the shores of the Aegean Sea in the west. His military campaigns were not driven solely by the pursuit of wealth or power, but by a deep-seated desire to create a new kind of empire, one based on tolerance, respect for diverse cultures, and the establishment of a fair legal system. The foundation of the Achaemenid Empire under Cyrus the Great marked a turning point in the history of the ancient world. For the first time in recorded history, a ruler had successfully united a vast array of peoples from different cultures, religions, and ethnicities under a single, cohesive empire. This vision of a diverse yet unified empire was revolutionary and would serve as a model for future empires, from the Roman Empire to the Mongol Empire. Cyrus' ability to bridge these divides and create a stable and prosperous empire is one of the most remarkable achievements of antiquity. The rise of Cyrus the Great to power is one of the most remarkable stories of political and military strategy in ancient history. His early conquest of the Median Empire, which had long dominated the Iranian plateau, is a testament to his military prowess and vision. The Medes, under King Astyages, were once the most powerful force in the region, but by the time Cyrus entered the stage, their reign was on the cusp of collapse. The dynamics between the Persians and the Medes were complex, marked by mutual resentment and ambition. It was within this fraught environment that Cyrus would begin his journey toward uniting the two tribes and founding the Achaemenid Empire. Astyages, the Median king, had long been the dominant power in the region, overseeing a vast kingdom stretching from the Zagros Mountains to the Iranian plateau. The Medes had conquered various neighboring peoples, including the Persians, and had established a ruling class that imposed its authority over smaller, less developed tribes. However, over time, the Medes' power began to wane. The Persians, who had long been under the thumb of the Median rulers, grew increasingly dissatisfied with their subjugation. Under the leadership of Cyrus, the Persians found their opportunity to rise up. The catalyst for this revolt came when Cyrus, who was still a young man, began to challenge the authority of Astyages. Initially, the Median king did not view Cyrus as a serious threat. After all, Cyrus was the son of Cambyses I, the ruler of Anshan, a small Persian kingdom that was under Median control. However, as the years passed, Cyrus' growing reputation and increasing support among the Persian nobility could no longer be ignored. The Persian resentment toward the Medes had grown deep, and the idea of Persian autonomy was gaining traction among those who desired independence from Median rule. Astyages, upon hearing of Cyrus' ambitions, took a decisive step to quash the growing movement. In an attempt to preemptively neutralize the threat, Astyages attempted to have Cyrus executed as a child, as foretold in a prophecy that predicted Cyrus would overthrow him. But fate intervened, and Cyrus was spared, an event that set the stage for the eventual downfall of Astyages' empire. When Cyrus grew older and began to raise an army, the political landscape had shifted, and the stage was set for a showdown between the two kingdoms. Cyrus' first step in his revolt against Astyages was to gather support from discontented Medes who were tired of their king's rule. Many of the Median nobility had grown disillusioned with Astyages' leadership, which was often seen as tyrannical and disconnected from the needs of the people. Cyrus, with his persuasive charisma and promises of fair treatment, was able to win over many of these key figures, including those within the Median military. As a result, when Cyrus finally marched against Astyages, he was not merely leading the Persians, but was supported by a coalition of Medes eager for change. The conflict between the forces of Cyrus and Astyages began with a series of skirmishes. These small engagements allowed Cyrus to further cement his reputation as a capable and strategic commander. The final battle between the two armies occurred near the city of Ecbatana, the Median capital, where Cyrus faced Astyages in a decisive confrontation. Despite the fact that Astyages had a larger and more experienced army, Cyrus' forces, though smaller, were better coordinated and highly motivated by their desire for a new political order. The battle ended in a resounding victory for Cyrus, marking the end of the Median Empire and the beginning of a new era in Persian history. What followed after this victory was not a vengeful massacre, but rather a shrewd and calculated political maneuver. After the defeat of Astyages, Cyrus did not seek to destroy the Median ruling class, but instead sought to incorporate them into his new empire. This pragmatic approach to governance was one of the hallmarks of his leadership. Rather than impose Persian rule on the Medes, he offered them positions of power within his administration, thereby ensuring their loyalty. This was a key moment in Cyrus' career, for it marked his willingness to blend military conquest with political wisdom, a combination that would serve him well in the years to come. Cyrus' treatment of Astyages also reflected his understanding of the importance of symbolism and diplomacy in consolidating power. Although he had overthrown his grandfather, he did not execute him or humiliate him in public. Instead, Cyrus allowed Astyages to live out the rest of his life in relative comfort, treating him with respect and dignity. This act of clemency reinforced the idea that Cyrus was not a ruthless conqueror, but rather a ruler who sought to create a stable and just empire. It was a message that would resonate throughout the empire and earn him the loyalty of many of his new subjects. The conquest of the Median Empire set the stage for Cyrus to become the leader of a united Persian Median state. His ability to unite the Medes and Persians under one banner and to integrate the two cultures was an extraordinary achievement. He combined the military strength of the Persians with the administrative prowess of the Medes, creating a more effective and cohesive ruling structure. This unification provided the foundation for the Achaemenid Empire, which would go on to become one of the largest empires in history. In the aftermath of the Median conquest, Cyrus' reputation as a visionary leader only grew. His military success, coupled with his diplomatic tact, made him a figure of admiration not just among his own people, but also among the other neighboring kingdoms. He was seen as a man of destiny, a ruler whose vision of empire was grounded in both military conquest and enlightened governance. The Medes, who had once been his conquerors, were now his allies, and the Persian people, who had once been subjugated, were now united under his rule. The foundations of the Achaemenid Empire were firmly in place, and the stage was set for Cyrus to continue his expansionist ambitions. Having established his rule over the Medes and Persians, Cyrus the Great turned his attention to expanding his empire. His conquest of the Median Empire was only the beginning of a larger vision to create a vast and diverse empire that spanned multiple continents. His military campaigns were not driven solely by a desire for conquest, but also by a keen strategic sense and an ambition to unite the disparate peoples of the ancient world under a single banner. Through his brilliant military tactics, political acumen, and ability to inspire loyalty among his subjects, Cyrus was able to build one of the largest empires in ancient history. Cyrus' first major campaign after the conquest of the Medes was directed toward the wealthy kingdom of Lydia, located in western Anatolia, present-day Turkey. Lydia, under King Croesus, had long been a powerful and prosperous kingdom, famous for its wealth and its formidable military. Croesus, known for his legendary wealth, had made a name for himself by amassing treasure and forging alliances with other regional powers. However, Cyrus saw Lydia's wealth as both a temptation and a strategic necessity, and he set his sights on it as a key target for the expansion of his empire. The Lydian campaign began in 547 BCE and was marked by a series of tactical maneuvers that showcased Cyrus' military genius. Despite the Lydian army's reputation for strength and its superior armor and weaponry, Cyrus employed innovative strategies to overcome them. One of the most notable aspects of the Lydian campaign was the Battle of CYRUS, the Lydian capital. Despite being outnumbered, Cyrus managed to outflank the Lydian forces and capitalize on their weaknesses. The battle was decisive, and Croesus, who had previously been confident in his victory, was captured. The fall of Lydia marked a significant turning point, as Cyrus now controlled not only the riches of Lydia, but also an important strategic location in Asia Minor, which would allow him to further extend his influence westward. With the fall of Lydia, Cyrus continued his expansion, turning his attention to the east. The Persian Empire had already absorbed much of the Iranian plateau, but Cyrus now looked to the vast and fertile lands of Central Asia and the Indian subcontinent. To the east, the nomadic peoples of the steppes, including the Scythians and other tribes, presented both a challenge and an opportunity. In this campaign, Cyrus demonstrated his ability to adapt to the unique tactics required to deal with these mobile, guerrilla-style fighters. He carefully negotiated with local tribes, securing alliances that would allow him to maintain control over these regions without engaging in prolonged warfare. By 539 BCE, Cyrus had turned his attention to the heart of Mesopotamia, a region rich in culture, resources, and strategic importance. The city of Babylon, under the rule of King Nabonidus, had been a powerful force in the region. However, the Babylonians were embroiled in internal conflicts and the city's governance was unstable. Cyrus, recognizing an opportunity, set his sights on the ancient city, not just for its wealth, but also for its symbolic importance as one of the greatest cities of antiquity. The campaign against Babylon was a masterstroke in both military strategy and diplomacy. In 539 BCE, after months of preparation, Cyrus led his army into the Babylonian heartland. What set this conquest apart from others was Cyrus' ability to minimize destruction and bloodshed. Rather than laying siege to the city in the traditional manner, Cyrus managed to breach the walls of Babylon through a combination of cunning tactics, including diverting the Euphrates River, which allowed his forces to enter the city through the riverbed. Upon entering Babylon, Cyrus quickly established control and secured the loyalty of the people. His actions were characterized not by brutality, but by a desire for stability and order. In doing so, he gained the support of the Babylonians, who saw him as a liberator rather than a conqueror. The conquest of Babylon was not only a military triumph, but also a political and cultural one. Cyrus respected the religious traditions of the Babylonians and made efforts to appease their gods, which further solidified his position as a benevolent ruler. One of the most significant acts following his capture of Babylon was his decree to allow the exiled Jewish people to return to their homeland, a move that would later earn him reverence in the Jewish tradition. The Cyrus cylinder, a stone artifact inscribed with Cyrus proclamations, recorded this act of tolerance and remains one of the earliest declarations of human rights in history. His decision to respect local religions and cultures helped to establish a model of governance that would be a hallmark of his reign. Cyrus' success in Mesopotamia was a clear reflection of his ability to inspire loyalty among his subjects. Rather than relying solely on military might, he sought to integrate conquered peoples into his empire. This was an important aspect of his expansion strategy. He did not seek to impose a single culture, religion, or system of governance, but instead allowed local leaders to retain power, provided they remained loyal to him. This policy of religious and cultural tolerance was revolutionary in the ancient world and contributed significantly to the long-term stability of the Achaemenid Empire. With the conquest of Babylon, Cyrus had not only expanded his empire to include vast stretches of Mesopotamia, but had also established his reputation as a ruler who respected the diverse peoples and cultures under his control. His empire now spanned from the eastern Iranian plateau to the Mediterranean Sea, from the Anatolian Peninsula to the Persian Gulf. This vast expanse required a complex system of administration, and Cyrus responded by creating an efficient bureaucracy that could manage the day-to-day affairs of such a sprawling empire. He appointed satraps, or provincial governors, to oversee different regions, ensuring that local concerns were addressed while maintaining overall control. Cyrus' empire was characterized by its remarkable diversity. Within its borders, peoples of different languages, customs, and religions coexisted, and Cyrus ensured that each was treated with respect. The Persian Empire, under Cyrus, was one of the first examples of a truly multicultural state. It became a model for future empires, including those of Alexander the Great and the Romans. His ability to govern such a diverse population with relative harmony was a direct result of his policies of tolerance and inclusivity. By the time of his death in 530 BCE, Cyrus had built an empire that spanned 3 continents and included a vast array of peoples, cultures, and traditions. His military campaigns had established the Persian Empire as one of the most powerful forces in the ancient world, and his legacy as a visionary leader and statesman was already cemented. His successors, particularly his son Cambyses II, would continue his expansionist policies, but it was Cyrus who laid the foundations of what would become one of the longest-lasting empires in history. Cyrus the Great is often remembered not only for his military conquests, but also for his revolutionary approach to governance. His empire was built on principles that were remarkably advanced for their time, combining military might with administrative brilliance. Unlike many conquerors of his era who imposed harsh rule on their subjects, Cyrus sought to establish a more enlightened form of leadership that emphasized respect for local customs, religious tolerance, and a fair system of justice. His reforms were integral to the longevity and success of the Achaemenid Empire, and his legacy as a statesman and ruler remains one of the most influential in history. Upon securing his empire through conquest, Cyrus faced the immense challenge of governing a vast and diverse territory. The Persian Empire, under his rule, stretched from the Mediterranean Sea in the west to the Indus River in the east, and from the Caucasus Mountains in the north to the Persian Gulf in the south. Such a vast empire required a sophisticated system of administration to maintain order and ensure the smooth functioning of daily life. Rather than relying solely on military force, Cyrus implemented a series of reforms that focused on delegation, decentralization, and local autonomy. One of Cyrus' most significant innovations was the creation of a system of satrapies, or provinces, each governed by a satrap, a regional governor. This system allowed Cyrus to maintain control over vast territories while respecting local customs and traditions. The satraps were typically chosen from local aristocratic families, ensuring that they had both the loyalty of the people and the authority to enforce royal edicts. However, Cyrus also established a system of oversight to prevent corruption and abuses of power. Royal inspectors, known as the king's eyes and ears, were sent to ensure that the satraps were governing justly and not overstepping their bounds. The satrapy system was highly effective in maintaining order and promoting economic stability across the empire. It allowed for the efficient collection of taxes, the maintenance of public infrastructure, and the organization of defense and military campaigns. In return for their loyalty, the satraps were given significant autonomy in managing their regions, including the ability to collect taxes and enforce local laws. This system balanced centralized power with local governance, making the Persian Empire both cohesive and adaptable to the needs of its diverse peoples. Cyrus was also a pioneer in promoting religious tolerance, a policy that set him apart from many rulers of his time. Instead of imposing a single religion or ideology, Cyrus allowed the various cultures and peoples under his rule to practice their religions freely. This was a radical departure from the norm, as many ancient rulers sought to force their subjects to adopt their own religious beliefs or face punishment. Cyrus, however, recognized that religious harmony was essential for the stability of his empire. His respect for local beliefs earned him the loyalty of his subjects and helped to prevent uprisings and dissent. One of the most notable examples of Cyrus' religious tolerance was his treatment of the Jewish people. After conquering Babylon in 539 BCE, Cyrus allowed the exiled Jews to return to their homeland in Judea and rebuild their temple in Jerusalem. This act was unprecedented in the ancient world, where the deportation and subjugation of defeated peoples was common practice. Cyrus not only allowed the Jews to return to their land, but also provided financial and material support for the reconstruction of the temple. This act earned him a revered place in Jewish history, where he is often referred to as a Messiah or liberator. Cyrus' approach to governance also extended to the legal system. He established a code of laws that emphasized fairness and justice, drawing upon the best practices of the cultures within his empire. The Persian legal system was based on the principles of equity, and it sought to protect the rights of individuals, especially those from marginalized groups. Under Cyrus, the Persian legal code was remarkably advanced for its time, offering protections for women, slaves, and the poor. The codification of laws helped to ensure that justice was applied consistently across the empire and contributed to the stability of his reign. In addition to his legal and religious reforms, Cyrus was also deeply committed to infrastructure development. He recognized that the success of his empire depended not only on military conquest, but also on the efficient functioning of trade, communication, and transportation networks. To this end, he invested heavily in the construction of roads, bridges, and canals. One of his most famous projects was the construction of the Royal Road, a vast network of roads that connected the Persian heartland with the farthest reaches of the empire. The Royal Road allowed for the swift movement of troops, goods, and messages, facilitating both military campaigns and trade. It became a symbol of the interconnectedness of the Persian Empire and played a crucial role in its economic prosperity. Cyrus also understood the importance of diplomacy in maintaining a stable empire. While he was a brilliant military strategist, he also recognized that not every conflict needed to be resolved through war. He forged alliances with neighboring powers through marriage, trade agreements, and mutual respect. His diplomatic efforts were instrumental in securing the loyalty of many of the smaller kingdoms and tribes that lay at the borders of his empire. Through his diplomatic efforts, Cyrus was able to maintain peace with many of his neighbors, allowing him to focus on strengthening his empire from within. The legacy of Cyrus the Great as a ruler is not merely defined by his military conquests, but by the institutions and reforms he established. His policies of tolerance, decentralization, and justice laid the groundwork for the success of the Achaemenid Empire. His innovative approach to governance ensured that his empire was not only vast, but also stable, with a system of administration that was capable of adapting to the diverse needs of its subjects. The empire he founded would endure for over 2 centuries after his death, and many of the principles he instituted would influence the governance of subsequent empires, from the Romans to the Ottomans. Cyrus' legacy is also reflected in the way he is remembered by the cultures he ruled. In Persia, he is celebrated as a great king who founded the empire and brought peace and prosperity to the region. In the Jewish tradition, he is revered as a liberator and a model of righteousness. In the broader historical context, Cyrus is often seen as a visionary leader whose policies of tolerance and justice set him apart from other conquerors of his time. His impact on the world stage was profound, and his influence continues to be felt in the way we think about governance, justice, and the treatment of conquered peoples. Cyrus the Great's rise to power was not just a product of his vision and governance, but also of the exceptional military structure he developed to support his ambitions. As a leader, Cyrus understood that a successful empire required a well-organized and disciplined military that could both defend its borders and expand its territories. The Persian military was a model of efficiency, incorporating both innovative tactics and effective management to achieve its remarkable success. Cyrus was not merely a conqueror. He was a military strategist who recognized that the strength of his army would determine the strength of his empire. At the heart of the Persian military system was its unique and effective organizational structure. Unlike many contemporary armies, which relied heavily on conscripted soldiers from within their own tribes or regions, Cyrus built a diverse and inclusive military force. His army was composed not only of Persians, but also of Medes, Lydians, Babylonians, and various other conquered peoples. This allowed him to field a highly diverse force capable of performing different tasks, from infantry battles to cavalry skirmishes. Cyrus was able to blend the strengths of different cultures and their respective military traditions into a unified, formidable fighting force. One of the most innovative features of Cyrus' military was the creation of specialized units. The most famous of these was the Persian cavalry, which played a critical role in the empire's success. The Persian cavalry was among the best trained and most disciplined in the ancient world, able to execute complex maneuvers with precision. Mounted archers, heavy cavalry, and light cavalry were all integrated into a cohesive force, which gave Cyrus a significant advantage over enemy armies. His cavalry was not only used for direct combat, but also for reconnaissance, skirmishing, and even psychological warfare. The swift and mobile nature of the cavalry allowed Cyrus to outflank enemies and strike at their vulnerabilities, often before they had time to react. Equally important to Cyrus' military successes were the Persian infantry, which included archers, spearmen, and swordsmen. These foot soldiers were well-trained and well-equipped, with an emphasis on discipline and coordination. One of the most notable aspects of the Persian infantry was the use of the Immortals, an elite force of 10,000 soldiers who were always kept at full strength. The Immortals were named for their ability to quickly replace fallen soldiers, maintaining their number at all times. This made them a symbol of strength and endurance, both on and off the battlefield. The Immortals were not only known for their prowess in battle, but also for their ability to intimidate enemies and instill confidence in the Persian ranks. Cyrus also understood the importance of logistics and supply chains in maintaining a successful military campaign. His army was well supported by a network of supply depots and strategically placed outposts that allowed his forces to remain mobile and well-equipped during extended campaigns. The logistical capabilities of the Persian military were critical to its ability to maintain operations across vast distances, from the deserts of the Middle East to the mountainous regions of Central Asia. Cyrus' forces could travel great distances, conquer new territories, and still be well supplied, giving them a distinct advantage over their adversaries. Another significant aspect of Cyrus' military success was his ability to adapt to different forms of warfare. He was not limited to a single type of combat, but was flexible and willing to innovate based on the needs of each particular campaign. For example, in his conquest of Babylon, Cyrus employed clever siege tactics to breach the city's formidable walls. Instead of relying on brute force or traditional siege weapons, he diverted the flow of the Euphrates River, allowing his troops to enter the city through its water gates. This clever use of environmental factors was a hallmark of Cyrus' strategic thinking and demonstrated his ability to adapt to changing circumstances. Cyrus also recognized the importance of psychological warfare in his military campaigns. He understood that fear could be as effective a weapon as the sword, and he employed a number of tactics designed to demoralize his enemies. For instance, during the conquest of Lydia, he deliberately spread rumors that his forces were far larger than they actually were, leading King Croesus to underestimate his own chances of success. Similarly, in his campaigns against the nomadic tribes of Central Asia, Cyrus often used his cavalry to create the illusion of a larger force, scattering rumors and misinformation to weaken the morale of his opponents before even engaging in direct combat. One of the key elements of Cyrus' military leadership was his ability to inspire loyalty and unity among his soldiers. While he was a brilliant strategist and tactician, he also understood that a strong army was one that was motivated and united under a common cause. Cyrus led by example, often fighting alongside his men and demonstrating courage on the battlefield. His ability to earn the respect and admiration of his troops was essential to his success, as it created a sense of camaraderie and shared purpose among his soldiers. This loyalty was further reinforced by his just treatment of his soldiers and his willingness to reward them for their victories. The organization of the Persian army also allowed for effective coordination with other branches of the military. Cyrus made sure that his cavalry, infantry, and archers worked together in a cohesive manner. Each unit was trained to complement the others, and communication between them was key to executing complex military operations. The ability of the Persian army to coordinate its efforts across various units allowed them to outmaneuver enemies, even when they were outnumbered. Cyrus' focus on discipline, training, and effective coordination set his army apart from many of his contemporaries, ensuring that his forces could execute complex maneuvers with precision. Finally, Cyrus was a master of strategic alliances, recognizing the value of diplomacy in bolstering his military campaigns. Rather than relying solely on his army, he often sought alliances with neighboring states and tribes to strengthen his position. These alliances were essential in securing victory in difficult campaigns, as they allowed him to field larger armies and open up new avenues for military action. Cyrus' diplomatic efforts often involved marrying into the royal families of allied states or offering strategic trade agreements, which helped to ensure that his military campaigns were supported by a network of allies. Cyrus the Great is often remembered for his military brilliance, but his diplomatic acumen was equally central to his success. While many conquerors relied purely on military might to expand their empires, Cyrus understood the power of alliances, negotiation, and strategic diplomacy. He did not view diplomacy merely as an extension of warfare. Rather, it was a critical tool that allowed him to secure his empire, foster peace with his neighbors, and manage diverse peoples under his rule. His diplomatic approach was characterized by pragmatism, respect for local traditions, and an astute awareness of the geopolitical landscape of his time. Cyrus' ability to forge alliances played a crucial role in his military campaigns. His conquests were often supported not only by the strength of his own forces, but also by the strategic alliances he formed with neighboring states and tribal leaders. These alliances were not simply the result of forceful coercion. Rather, Cyrus engaged in a careful balancing act of diplomacy and pragmatism. He knew how to offer mutual benefits in exchange for loyalty, making allies feel as though their interests were aligned with those of Persia. Through these alliances, he was able to create a network of support that strengthened his position and helped him manage the vast territories he conquered. One of the most notable examples of Cyrus' diplomatic skill was his relationship with the Kingdom of Lydia. Before launching his campaign against King Croesus of Lydia, Cyrus had established diplomatic ties with several smaller states in the region. These smaller states were often rivals of Lydia, and Cyrus offered them a chance to join his cause by promising to respect their autonomy in exchange for their support. This diplomatic maneuver not only weakened Lydia's position, but also allowed Cyrus to gain strategic advantages without engaging in full-scale warfare. By the time he marched into Lydia, Cyrus had already built a coalition of states that would help undermine Croesus' power. Cyrus' dealings with the Babylonians further illustrate his diplomatic savvy. Upon capturing Babylon in 539 BCE, Cyrus not only defeated the Babylonians militarily, but also employed a remarkable diplomatic strategy to win the support of the Babylonian people. Rather than taking a punitive approach or subjecting the city to the wrath of conquest, Cyrus presented himself as a liberator. Babylon had been under the rule of the impious king Nabonidus, and many Babylonians were disillusioned with his reign. Cyrus capitalized on this sentiment, portraying his invasion as a restoration of order and justice. He respected Babylonian religious practices, reinstated the local priesthood, and even decreed that the Jews, who had been exiled by the Babylonians, be allowed to return to their homeland in Judea. This respectful approach earned him the admiration of the Babylonians, who saw him not as a conqueror, but as a benevolent ruler. In addition to military alliances, Cyrus was skilled at manipulating the internal politics of his enemies. He understood that weakening his adversaries from within could be just as effective as defeating them on the battlefield. One of the most striking examples of this was his dealings with the Medes. Though the Medes were technically part of the Persian Empire after Cyrus' conquest, they still retained a significant degree of influence and power. Rather than alienating the Medes or crushing their culture, Cyrus recognized the value of their royal lineage and integrated it into his rule. He married into the Median royal family and appointed Median leaders to key positions within his administration. This not only helped to maintain stability within the empire, but also ensured that the Medes remained loyal to him. Cyrus' diplomatic brilliance extended beyond the borders of his empire to distant regions as well. His empire was situated at a crossroads of trade routes, making it a hub for commerce and communication. Recognizing the importance of maintaining peaceful relations with neighboring powers, Cyrus was careful to cultivate diplomatic ties with the various peoples and states that bordered his empire. His dealings with the Scythians, the nomadic tribes to the north, are a prime example of his diplomatic approach. Rather than engaging in open conflict with these tribes, Cyrus sought to negotiate and form alliances that would secure his northern borders and keep the peace. He understood that the nomads, with their unpredictable movements and guerrilla tactics, could be a major threat if left unchecked. Cyrus also displayed remarkable flexibility in his approach to diplomacy. Unlike many of his contemporaries, who viewed diplomacy as a rigid practice, Cyrus was willing to adapt his strategy based on the evolving needs of his empire. For example, his relationship with the Greek city-states was complex and multifaceted. While Persia and Greece were often at odds, Cyrus was able to maintain cordial relations with some Greek states, offering trade agreements and mutual support when necessary. His diplomatic overtures to the Greeks were not aimed at immediate conquest, but at ensuring the stability of the empire's western frontier. His son Cambyses would later pursue a more aggressive policy toward Greece, but Cyrus' more measured approach helped keep tensions from escalating during his reign. In addition to his political and military alliances, Cyrus was adept at using cultural diplomacy to further his aims. He recognized the importance of integrating the diverse peoples within his empire and making them feel valued. Rather than imposing Persian culture on the conquered regions, Cyrus allowed local traditions and customs to thrive. He actively encouraged cultural exchange, which helped to promote a sense of unity among the disparate peoples of the Persian Empire. This policy of inclusion extended to the arts, religion, and language. Under Cyrus, Aramaic became the lingua franca of the empire, facilitating communication across vast regions, while religious tolerance ensured that temples, shrines, and holy sites were respected, regardless of the dominant faith of the ruling class. Cyrus also understood the power of symbolic gestures in diplomacy. His famous declaration, known as the Cyrus Cylinder, was an act of political genius. This cylinder, inscribed with a proclamation that outlined Cyrus' policies of tolerance and respect for local customs, was not only a legal document, but also a powerful statement to the people of his empire. By allowing his subjects to see his intentions in writing, Cyrus established a sense of transparency and fairness in his rule. The Cyrus Cylinder is considered one of the earliest examples of human rights declarations and has been hailed as a significant diplomatic document that demonstrated Cyrus' commitment to the welfare of his subjects. Despite his diplomatic successes, Cyrus was also a master at dealing with his enemies. He knew when to engage in direct confrontation and when to use diplomacy to weaken his foes. His ability to balance warfare and negotiation was key to his success. For example, in his campaign against Croesus of Lydia, Cyrus employed both military strategy and diplomatic pressure. By dividing his enemies through alliances with rival states, Cyrus was able to neutralize many of the Lydian king's potential supporters before the battle even began. This strategic use of diplomacy ensured that when the battle came, he was not fighting a war on multiple fronts. The conquest of Babylon in 539 BCE stands as one of the most iconic events of Cyrus the Great's military career, exemplifying both his strategic brilliance and his ability to unite military power with diplomatic finesse. The fall of Babylon was not merely the capture of a city. It was the culmination of years of preparation, the use of psychological tactics, and the application of innovative military strategies. The city's wealth, its religious and cultural significance, and its fortified defenses made it one of the most formidable cities of the ancient world. Yet, under Cyrus' leadership, Babylon was brought to its knees with surprising efficiency and minimal bloodshed. Babylon, at the time, was under the rule of King Nabonidus, whose reign had become increasingly unpopular. Nabonidus' religious reforms, particularly his favoring of the moon god Sin over Marduk, the patron deity of Babylon, had alienated many of the city's priests and citizens. Additionally, Nabonidus' long absences from Babylon, spending much of his time in the Arabian oasis of Tema, further undermined his authority and weakened the kingdom. Cyrus, ever astute in his understanding of local dynamics, recognized this as a potential vulnerability, which he exploited diplomatically before launching his military campaign. The first step in Cyrus' strategy was the careful cultivation of a favorable image among the Babylonians. Rather than presenting himself as a ruthless conqueror, he positioned himself as a liberator who would restore order to a city in chaos. In his famous declaration, the Cyrus Cylinder, he articulated his policies of religious tolerance and respect for local traditions, which resonated deeply with the Babylonian populace, especially the priesthood. By promising to restore Marduk to his rightful place and honoring the city's religious practices, Cyrus won the support of many influential figures within Babylon. This approach helped to sow division within the city, as many Babylonians began to view Nabonidus as an illegitimate ruler and Cyrus as a benevolent alternative. Meanwhile, Cyrus was also preparing for the military aspect of his campaign. The Babylonians, confident in their fortified city and the strength of their walls, initially underestimated Cyrus' determination and military capabilities. Babylon's fortifications were some of the most impressive in the ancient world, with massive walls, a double ring system of defense, and a moat. The city appeared nearly impregnable. However, Cyrus was no ordinary military leader, and he recognized that a direct assault on the walls of Babylon would be futile and costly. Instead, he focused on a strategy that combined indirect methods with psychological warfare. One of the most brilliant aspects of Cyrus' campaign was his decision to divert the Euphrates River, which flowed through the heart of Babylon. Knowing that the river was an essential part of Babylon's defenses, both as a natural barrier and as a source of water for the city, Cyrus ordered his engineers to dig a canal to divert the river's flow. By lowering the river's water level, he was able to expose the city's river gates, which had previously been seen as invulnerable. This strategy allowed Cyrus' army to enter Babylon under the cover of darkness, bypassing the city's formidable defenses. On the night of the invasion, Cyrus' troops, aided by the diverted river, marched through the now exposed river gates and into the heart of Babylon. The Babylonian defenders, unprepared for such an audacious maneuver, were caught off guard. The element of surprise was crucial in ensuring the success of the operation. The city, which had been so confident in its defenses, was now vulnerable to attack from within. In a remarkable turn of events, Babylon fell without the large-scale destruction or bloodshed that usually accompanied such a significant conquest. Cyrus' victory was not merely the result of military action. It was also due to his ability to manage the political and social dynamics within Babylon. While his troops entered the city, Cyrus sent emissaries to key Babylonian leaders, offering them favorable terms of surrender in exchange for their cooperation. Many of the city's leaders, including priests and military commanders, quickly pledged allegiance to Cyrus, recognizing the growing support for his cause among the population. This diplomatic maneuver ensured a relatively peaceful transition of power, with minimal resistance from the city's elite. The Babylonian nobility, weary of Nabonidus' rule, accepted Cyrus' offer and welcomed him as their new ruler. After the fall of Babylon, Cyrus' treatment of the city's inhabitants further demonstrated his diplomatic brilliance. Instead of imposing harsh punishment on the Babylonians for their defeat, he chose to restore order and stability. He ensured that the city's religious institutions were preserved, and he returned the sacred statues of Marduk and other gods to their places of honor. This act not only demonstrated his respect for Babylonian culture, but also helped solidify his image as a just and benevolent ruler. The people of Babylon, who had previously suffered under the tyranny of Nabonidus, now saw Cyrus as their protector and benefactor. In addition to his religious and political maneuvers, Cyrus also ensured that the economic systems of Babylon were maintained after his conquest. He allowed merchants and traders to continue their activities and ensured that the city's wealth remained intact. Babylon, a vital center of trade and commerce, flourished under Persian rule, with its markets continuing to thrive as before. This economic stability helped to strengthen Cyrus' position in the region, allowing him to solidify his rule and integrate Babylon into the wider Persian Empire. The conquest of Babylon also had significant cultural and symbolic implications. Babylon was not only a powerful city, but also a cultural and intellectual hub. By taking control of such a renowned metropolis, Cyrus cemented his position as one of the most powerful rulers in the ancient world. His victory was not simply a military achievement, but also a cultural triumph, as it allowed him to position Persia as a dominant power in the Near East. Babylon's inclusion in the Persian Empire brought with it access to vast resources, intellectual wealth, and trade networks, which further enhanced the empire's prosperity. Cyrus' ability to conquer Babylon with minimal violence and disruption exemplifies his unique approach to warfare. While many conquerors would have resorted to brutal tactics, Cyrus understood the value of preserving the cultural, economic, and social fabric of the societies he conquered. His strategy in Babylon was a model of efficiency and restraint, combining military innovation with political and cultural sensitivity. It set a precedent for future Persian rulers who would follow in his footsteps, applying similar tactics in their own campaigns. The fall of Babylon marked a significant turning point in the history of the ancient Near East. It was not just a political conquest, but also the beginning of an era of peace, stability, and prosperity under Persian rule. Cyrus' victory in Babylon demonstrated that military power, when combined with diplomacy, respect for local customs, and a keen understanding of the political landscape, could lead to the establishment of a powerful and enduring empire. The conquest of Babylon remains one of the greatest achievements of Cyrus the Great and solidified his legacy as one of history's most effective and visionary rulers. After the fall of Babylon and the consolidation of his vast empire, Cyrus the Great turned his attention to the challenge of governance. The Persian Empire, under his rule, stretched from the Mediterranean Sea in the west to the Indus River in the east, encompassing diverse peoples, cultures, and territories. The scale of his empire required a sophisticated system of administration that could manage such a vast and varied realm. Cyrus understood that the key to maintaining control over this diverse territory was a balanced approach that combined central authority with respect for local customs and governance structures. Cyrus' method of rule was characterized by a policy of tolerance and inclusion, which was revolutionary for its time. Rather than imposing Persian laws and culture on the many different peoples within his empire, Cyrus allowed a great degree of autonomy. He respected the religious beliefs, cultural practices, and legal systems of the regions he conquered, which fostered a sense of loyalty and cooperation among his subjects. This policy of tolerance was not only politically expedient, but also strategically sound. By allowing local leaders to maintain power and continue administering their territories according to their customs, Cyrus created a system of governance that was both decentralized and efficient. One of the key elements of Cyrus' administration was his use of satraps, or provincial governors, to oversee the various regions of his empire. The satraps were appointed based on their loyalty and competence, and they were given significant authority to govern their territories. This decentralized system allowed Cyrus to maintain control over vast distances, ensuring that his empire remained cohesive while also accommodating regional differences. The satraps were responsible for collecting taxes, maintaining order, and ensuring that local laws were followed, all while answering directly to the central authority of the king. The satrapal system also helped to promote a sense of unity within the empire. While each region had its own traditions and customs, the satraps were expected to enforce the king's policies and ensure that imperial interests were prioritized. This balance between local autonomy and central control allowed Cyrus to maintain stability while also promoting the efficient functioning of his empire. The satraps were often drawn from local elites, ensuring that the people were governed by those who were familiar with their customs and needs. This helped to reduce the likelihood of rebellion and discontent, as the local populations felt that their leaders were sympathetic to their interests. Cyrus was also a keen reformer when it came to law and governance. He understood that a well-functioning legal system was essential to the stability of his empire. He is often credited with having created one of the first codified systems of law in the ancient world, a set of rules that ensured fairness and justice across his empire. These laws were based on principles of equity and fairness, and they reflected Cyrus' belief in the importance of justice for all his subjects, regardless of their status or ethnicity. This legal framework was essential not only for maintaining order within the empire, but also for fostering trust and loyalty among the diverse populations that Cyrus ruled. One of the most important aspects of Cyrus' governance was his approach to taxation. Rather than instituting a heavy-handed system of taxation that burdened his subjects, Cyrus implemented a system that was based on local conditions and the abilities of each province. Taxes were levied in a way that took into account the economic realities of each region, which helped to avoid widespread resentment and unrest. This flexible approach to taxation not only ensured a steady flow of revenue into the imperial coffers, but also allowed local economies to thrive. By being mindful of the economic capacities of each province, Cyrus was able to maintain a stable and prosperous empire. Cyrus also understood the importance of infrastructure in maintaining the cohesion of his vast empire. Under his rule, significant investments were made in building roads, bridges, and communication networks that linked the farthest reaches of the empire. These infrastructure projects facilitated the movement of troops, the flow of goods, and the exchange of information, all of which were crucial to maintaining control over such a vast territory. The construction of roads, most notably the Royal Road, was an important achievement that enabled Cyrus to communicate quickly with his satraps and respond to any threats or issues that arose within the empire. In addition to his physical infrastructure projects, Cyrus was also committed to promoting cultural exchange and intellectual growth within his empire. He understood that the Persian Empire was a melting pot of different cultures and traditions, and he sought to harness this diversity for the benefit of his empire. He encouraged the movement of people, ideas, and technologies across his realm, fostering an environment of intellectual and cultural flourishing. Under Cyrus, the Persian Empire became a hub of trade and exchange, with merchants, scholars, and artisans from all over the ancient world coming to Persia to share their knowledge and goods. Another key aspect of Cyrus' administration was his focus on religious tolerance. Unlike many rulers of the ancient world, who sought to impose their own religious beliefs on their subjects, Cyrus allowed the various religious traditions of his empire to coexist peacefully. This policy of religious tolerance not only helped to maintain stability within the empire, but also ensured that his subjects felt respected and valued. One of the most famous examples of Cyrus' religious tolerance was his decree allowing the Jewish people, who had been exiled to Babylon, to return to their homeland in Judea. This act of generosity and respect for religious freedom earned him the admiration of many, and it is one of the reasons why Cyrus is regarded as a hero in Jewish tradition. Cyrus' commitment to good governance and his ability to balance the needs of a diverse empire left a lasting legacy that influenced future rulers. His administrative policies, particularly his use of satraps and his system of decentralized governance, were adopted by later Persian kings and were a major factor in the longevity of the Persian Empire. His emphasis on justice, tolerance, and respect for local customs set him apart from many other rulers of his time and created a model of governance that would endure for centuries. The legacy of Cyrus' administration can also be seen in the way he inspired future leaders. His approach to ruling an empire was not based solely on military might or authoritarian control, but on wisdom, fairness, and a deep understanding of human nature. He demonstrated that it was possible to govern a vast and diverse empire with a light hand, by respecting the autonomy of local peoples while maintaining central authority. His rule was characterized by a rare combination of strength and compassion, which helped to create an empire that was not only powerful, but also relatively stable and prosperous. As Cyrus the Great continued to expand and consolidate his empire, His vision for the future extended far beyond military conquests and territorial gains. His reign marked a transformative period, where the very notion of empire was redefined through a blend of cultural integration, prosperity, and visionary leadership. Though his conquests were impressive, Cyrus was not solely concerned with the extension of Persian power. He sought to create an enduring legacy, a legacy based on principles of peace, cultural harmony, and collective progress. The Persian Empire under Cyrus was far from a mere collection of subjugated peoples and conquered lands. It was an expansive, thriving system where different cultures coexisted, exchanged ideas, and benefited from mutual prosperity. While many empires before him had maintained their dominance through coercion and the suppression of local customs, Cyrus adopted a distinctly different approach, one that centered on integration rather than imposition. He recognized the immense value of the diverse traditions, languages, and religious practices within his empire, seeing them not as challenges to Persian authority, but as opportunities for cultural enrichment and mutual growth. Central to Cyrus' vision was the establishment of a stable, united empire, where various regions were not simply ruled by the sword but bound together by a common sense of shared interest and mutual respect. Rather than forcing a singular Persian identity upon his subjects, Cyrus allowed the peoples of his empire to preserve their cultural and religious identities. This emphasis on cultural autonomy played a key role in ensuring loyalty among the empire's diverse populations, as local customs were respected and maintained, contributing to a sense of security and stability. This cultural integration was particularly significant in Cyrus' approach to religious diversity. While the Persians themselves practiced Zoroastrianism, Cyrus adopted a policy of religious tolerance that set his empire apart from many contemporary powers. He understood the power of religion in unifying communities, so he allowed various religious groups, such as the Babylonians, Egyptians, and Jews, to continue their rituals and practices without interference. This not only strengthened his rule, but also fostered a sense of shared identity within the empire, as subjects across the vast territories could practice their faiths freely and openly. One of the most notable examples of Cyrus' commitment to religious tolerance and cultural respect was his decision to allow the exiled Jewish people to return to Jerusalem. After decades of captivity in Babylon, the Jews had long hoped for the opportunity to rebuild their temple and reclaim their sacred land. By permitting their return, Cyrus not only restored their religious and cultural practices, but also established himself as a ruler who understood the significance of cultural preservation. This act of kindness was memorialized in the Bible, where Cyrus is referred to as the Anointed One who fulfilled God's will. The Jewish people would later see him as a liberator, and his policies would shape their future relationship with the Persian Empire. Cyrus' vision for the future extended to the economic prosperity of his empire. While his military campaigns were essential in establishing Persian dominance, he knew that the long-term strength of the empire rested on its ability to maintain economic vitality. Cyrus encouraged the development of trade routes that connected the distant reaches of his empire, from the Anatolian coast to the Indian subcontinent. These trade routes, including the famous Royal Road, facilitated the movement of goods, ideas, and people, contributing to the wealth and integration of the empire. His encouragement of commerce and infrastructure development helped fuel an economic boom that lasted long after his death. Cyrus' efforts to promote economic prosperity also extended to agriculture. He understood that a stable food supply was the foundation of a thriving empire, and he worked to improve agricultural practices in the regions under his control. Irrigation systems, particularly in the fertile Mesopotamian basin, were expanded and modernized under his rule, allowing for the more efficient cultivation of crops. These efforts not only ensured a steady food supply, but also allowed the empire to support its growing population, further strengthening its position in the ancient world. Cyrus also encouraged the development of a robust administrative system that could manage the wealth and resources of his empire. His use of satraps to govern the provinces, as well as the establishment of a centralized system for tax collection and record-keeping, enabled the Persian Empire to function smoothly despite its vast size. Cyrus' reforms in this area were crucial in ensuring that the empire could effectively manage its resources and finances, which, in turn, supported its military and economic endeavors. In addition to his focus on economic and administrative stability, Cyrus had a profound understanding of the importance of education and intellectual development. While his empire was vast and diverse, with numerous cultures and languages, he encouraged the exchange of ideas and fostered an environment where knowledge could flourish. Scholars, philosophers, and artisans from various parts of the empire were encouraged to collaborate, share ideas, and learn from one another. This created an intellectual melting pot, where ideas from the East and West could intersect and evolve, contributing to the cultural richness of the empire. Cyrus was also deeply interested in the development of the arts and architecture, understanding their role in creating a unified identity for his empire. Under his rule, monumental construction projects were undertaken, including the construction of royal palaces, temples, and other public works. These structures were not only symbols of Persian power, but also embodiments of Persian culture and artistry. The construction of the famous Persepolis, which would later become the ceremonial capital of the Persian Empire, began under Cyrus' reign and was continued by his successors. The city was a grand testament to Persian architectural ingenuity, with its impressive structures, intricate reliefs, and towering columns symbolizing the empire's strength and cultural achievements. Though Cyrus' reign was marked by unprecedented achievements, his vision was not without challenges. The empire's vastness presented logistical difficulties, and the diversity of its subjects occasionally led to tensions between various groups. However, Cyrus' ability to balance the interests of these diverse groups with his broader vision for the future allowed the empire to remain relatively stable and prosperous during his lifetime. His reign set the stage for the continued expansion and success of the Persian Empire, which would flourish for centuries after his death. Cyrus' legacy extended beyond his lifetime, shaping the future of the Persian Empire and influencing rulers long after his reign. His model of governance, based on respect for cultural diversity, religious tolerance, economic prosperity, and intellectual exchange, set a standard for future empires. His vision for the future was not just about territorial conquest. It was about creating a lasting civilization that valued peace, cooperation, and mutual growth. In this sense, Cyrus was not merely a conqueror, but a visionary who sought to leave behind an empire that would endure for generations. Cyrus the Great, the founder of the Persian Empire, lived a life marked by both extraordinary conquests and remarkable wisdom. His death, which occurred around 530 BCE, marked the end of an era that had transformed the political and cultural landscape of the ancient world. Yet, even in death, Cyrus remained a symbol of vision, leadership, and justice. His passing left the empire in the hands of his son, Cambyses II, who inherited the legacy of a vast and prosperous realm. However, the question of what kind of legacy Cyrus left behind, both in his lifetime and after his death, became a central point of reflection for historians and rulers alike. Cyrus' death is shrouded in some mystery. While ancient sources suggest he died in battle, fighting against the Massagetæ in the northeastern part of his empire, the exact circumstances remain uncertain. Some accounts describe how he faced the warrior Queen Tamaris, whose forces overwhelmed his army, ultimately leading to his death. Other accounts, however, suggest he passed away due to illness or old age. Regardless of how he died, the significance of his life and reign continued to resonate long after his passing. What remained clear was that the impact of his rule was unparalleled, and the empire he built continued to thrive under his successors. Cyrus' legacy was not merely confined to the realm of military conquests or political accomplishments. His death marked the closing of one chapter, but the principles he embodied endured. His ability to unite a vast array of peoples under one banner, to govern with tolerance and respect for diversity, and to create an empire where culture and commerce flourished, set a standard for future rulers. The Persian Empire, in the centuries following his death, would continue to be a model of governance for succeeding generations, drawing from the foundations he had laid. In the years after his death, the Persian Empire would face its own challenges, including internal strife, rebellions, and external threats. Cambyses II, his son, would continue his father's military campaigns, but also face significant resistance and struggles in maintaining the stability that Cyrus had so carefully constructed. Despite these difficulties, the empire would eventually flourish under the rule of Darius I, who expanded upon the structures established by Cyrus. However, even Darius, one of the most capable Persian kings, would look to Cyrus as the model of enlightened rulership, understanding that it was Cyrus' unique blend of strength, wisdom, and fairness that had made the empire great. The death of Cyrus also marked a pivotal moment for those who had witnessed his rule. The people of the Persian Empire, from the nobility to the common subjects, mourned the loss of a king who had given them a sense of purpose, identity, and stability. For the conquered peoples, too, his death signified the loss of a ruler who had respected their traditions and granted them a level of autonomy that was rare in the ancient world. Though they had been brought under Persian rule, many of these subjects viewed Cyrus not as a tyrant, but as a liberator who had honored their cultural and religious practices. Cyrus' death prompted reflection not only within the Persian Empire, but also across the wider ancient world. His reign had been a symbol of success, not simply through conquest, but through the creation of an empire that transcended the traditional models of imperial domination. The examples he set, from his policies of religious tolerance to his use of efficient administration, became the subject of admiration by historians and philosophers throughout the ages. His greatness was measured not by the number of lands he had conquered, but by the quality of his governance and the enduring stability he had established. The legacy of Cyrus the Great was not confined to Persian history alone. It rippled across the ancient world. In the centuries following his death, scholars, historians, and political leaders would study his reign, seeking to learn from his leadership style. His approach to empire building, which emphasized respect for local customs and decentralized governance, would influence other empires in history, including the Romans, the Byzantines, and even more modern powers. For these empires, Cyrus served as a model of the wise ruler, one who understood that power must be tempered with compassion and respect for the ruled. Moreover, Cyrus' legacy endured in the form of the monumental achievements he left behind. The cities he founded, including the famous Persepolis, became symbols of Persian greatness, attracting visitors and scholars from across the ancient world. The Persian Empire's economic prosperity, fueled by the trade routes established during his reign, continued to benefit the empire long after his death. The Royal Road, which connected various regions of the empire, remained a key feature of the empire's infrastructure, ensuring that communication and commerce flowed smoothly across vast distances. One of the most enduring aspects of Cyrus' legacy is his role as a symbol of moral leadership. In Jewish, Christian, and Islamic traditions, he is revered as a figure of divine favor and moral righteousness. In the Bible, Cyrus is portrayed as the king who fulfilled God's will by allowing the Jewish people to return to their homeland. This image of Cyrus as a benevolent and just ruler was passed down through generations, cementing his place not only in Persian history, but in the global cultural and religious narrative. In these traditions, Cyrus came to represent the idea that rulers should serve the greater good and act with a sense of divine purpose. Cyrus' story has continued to be told across centuries, from ancient historians such as Herodotus to modern scholars who seek to understand his remarkable achievements. His image as a wise and just ruler who built an empire not just through military strength, but also through moral integrity, remains a potent symbol in the collective memory of the world. His death, though a natural end to his reign, marked the beginning of a lasting legacy that would influence countless generations. In conclusion, the death of Cyrus the Great did not mark the end of his influence. It marked the continuation of a vision that had reshaped the ancient world. His empire, founded on principles of tolerance, cultural integration, and economic prosperity, would endure long after his death, Through his wisdom, leadership, and compassion, Cyrus the Great had demonstrated that true power lay not in the sword, but in the ability to govern with justice and respect for the diversity of human experience. His legacy, immortalized in the stories, monuments, and traditions he left behind, continues to inspire leaders and visionaries across the world.